And I have the pleasure to give the floor to Ms. Mahbouba Seraij. Mrs. Seraij, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Excellencies, my name is Mahbouba Seraij. I'm an Afghan-American women's rights activist who has been living in Afghanistan since 2003. Over the last 20 years, the people of Afghanistan, especially women and girls, have fought for equality, human rights, inclusive governance, and peace in our country. Yet the hasty exit of the international community from Afghanistan last August has undermined our achievements and dashed our hopes for a democratic nation. The Taliban is once more in control and dismantling our rights daily. Hundreds of thousands of Afghans have been displaced to countries around the world. And today in Afghanistan, women are literally being erased from the public life, down to the beheading of the female mannequins in the shops' windows. My Afghan sisters and I warned the Security Council and broader international community of this possibility for decades. It pains me to be here before you today to affirm this truth. But we will not be silenced. And you have a tremendous responsibility for keeping the promises you have made to us over the years. My statement today will focus on the responsibility of the Security Council, the UN, and the international community for keeping Afghan women's rights front and center throughout all the deliberation on Afghanistan. Mr. President, after 20 years of tasting freedom, working, studying, playing sports, performing music, it has taken less than 6 months to completely dismantle the rights of the women and girls across the country. The majority of Afghanistan girls are banned from secondary school and university. Many women have fled the country who are prisoners in their own homes. Female judges, once celebrated by the international community, are on the run from the very individuals they imprisoned. Women are now required to travel with a mahram or male guardian. This has not only restricted their basic freedom of movement, but their ability to live their lives. It has prevented women from reaching their health appointments, escaping situation of domestic violence, and seeking employment. In a country where millions of Afghan women are widows and the sole breadwinners for their children, this rule is sabotaging families' survivals. While it feels as though the world has given up on Afghanistan and Afghan women, we have not. We are in the streets protesting every day despite the threats, weapons, and the violence. We are fighting for our inclusion, for justice, and for an end to repression of our people. But we need your political support and resources to succeed. We need you to stand by us and ensure that Afghan women are equal partners in making decisions about the future of our country. This includes calling for the Taliban to rescind the Mahram policy and uphold women's freedom of movement, and to ensure we can exercise our right to education, work, and health. Human rights defenders like Tamanna Zaryab Pariani and Parwana Ibrahim Khail, when you hear that they have been taken from their homes for protesting against the hijab, this means not giving up on asking about the disappearance of Alia Azizi. You cannot be silent about them, and if you claim to support us in this council. Mr. President, we are in the midst of a catastrophic humanitarian crisis since the Taliban's takeover. Hunger and poverty in Afghanistan have skyrocketed. More than half the population needs urgent food assistance at this very moment. Some families have resorted to selling their children or marrying off their girls as young as 9 years to pay for the food and urgent health care. The Taliban's restriction on women aid workers and their systematic dismantling of the country's system to address gender-based violence are endangering women's access to services. Our hospitals lack equipment and medication, including tests for COVID-19. As the humanitarian situation has rapidly deteriorated over the last 5 months, the people of my country have asked what they have done to deserve this, and no one has any answer for them. It is the responsibility of the Security Council, the international community, and the UN to do everything in their power to provide life-saving assistance, to avert further suffering. Aid must reach all Afghans, including women, minorities, and other marginalized groups. All humanitarian workers, including women, must be able to carry out their work freely and without fear of reprisal. Further, you must continue to ensure that humanitarian assistance goes directly to principled humanitarian organizations and local organizations operating on the ground, and not routed through the Taliban. Women's organizations in Afghanistan must be consulted on all aspects of this humanitarian operation. Mr. President, while humanitarian assistance is critical to managing short-term needs, the collapsing banking system and economy must also be addressed. Presently, ordinary Afghans who need to withdraw money must wait for hours before collecting what small amount has been permitted that day. The price of food staples continue to rise. Afghans have lost 500,000 jobs since August, which disproportionately impacts women. The massive brain drain prompted by the Taliban takeover has left the country without enough qualified workers. Even if the banking system restarts and supply chain demands are addressed, women's engagement in the workforce will be critical to the success of Afghanistan's economy. We were taxpayers, breadwinners, and innovators, all critical for the country's prosperity. In fact, restricting a woman's right to work could cost the Afghan economy up to $1 billion of its GDP. And although the Taliban doesn't support our right to work outside the home, the majority of the Afghans do. The international community must protect this right, dedicate funds to supporting us, and engage us as partners in developing solutions to the current crisis. This brings me to my final but most important point. The people of Afghanistan, especially its women, see the dilemma the world currently faces regarding how to engage with the Taliban while addressing the present urgent needs of Afghans. Ordinary Afghans must not be punished for a crisis they had no part in creating. But equally, the Taliban cannot use the lives of Afghans to hold the international community to ransom. Therefore, it is our collective interest to ensure there is a robust international presence through UNAMA, who can be our eyes and ears on the ground, monitoring developments in the country and whether the Taliban are following through on their commitments. This is especially important at a time where civil society, the media, and international NGOs are unable to do so. UNAMA should also play a key role in supporting dialogues with the Taliban and ensure inclusive consultations with the Afghans from all parts of the country and all walks of life. At the same time, the international community must not be afraid to use its important leverage over the Taliban. Human rights, women's rights, and accountability must be a part of every conversation. In addition, clear conditions must be placed on any economic and political support to the Taliban in order to ensure that they respect human rights. You affirm the importance of upholding all human rights in Resolution 2593. Now you must act on it. Finally, the international community must stop sending all male delegations to meet with the Taliban. This sends a dangerous signal that you do not value our rights or our views. Sending foreign women is not enough. We must start the process of inclusive governance for and by Afghans. Diverse representation of Afghan women, especially civil society, is essential. Mr. President, I am not the first, nor will I be the last Afghan woman who addresses this council. But this time, I hope the international community will start to take us seriously. While we cannot turn back the clock, we can choose to work differently, moving forward, ensuring that Afghan women are meaningfully part of our country's future is a critical place to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Siraj, for your briefing. Sincerely. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the Prime Minister of Norway. I would like to thank the Secretary General, Special Representative, Mrs. Lyons, and the Chair of the 1988 Committee for their introduction.